Ronald Reagan said, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. 3 decades later, American life is micromanaged at every imaginable level. Citizens' basic day-to-day activities are subject to government scrutiny. We endure a federal government that has invaded virtually every aspect of our lives, from light bulbs to toilets to lemonade stands and well beyond. The federal government regulates everything and anything. How much water goes into your toilet, how much water comes out of your shower head, the temperature of the water in your washing machine, how many miles to the gallon your car has to get. Americans' privacy has been violated at every turn. Since the implementation of the Patriot Act, your banking records, your credit card account, your gun registration, and your phone bill are easy pickings for government snoops who can do pretty much anything they like with your personal information without the hassle of having to get a warrant. The government can literally break down your door, seize your property, even seize you, based on rules and regulations created by unelected bureaucrats with zero accountability. Congress has abdicated its congressional role as the federal body that makes laws by allowing agencies like the EPA, FDA, USDA, and TSA to make their own laws through regulations and red tape. These agencies have assumed frightening new powers over the everyday life of American citizens, giving these government entities free rein over you and me in ways unprecedented in our country's history. Our ever-growing nanny state now includes an arsenal of unconstitutional and unprecedented surveillance and law enforcement powers. These government powers aren't exactly subtle in action or intent. Does anyone think a government with 38 armed federal agencies is kidding around? They're not. They mean business. Your business. Everyone understands that some federal agents must be armed, but most Americans are surprised to learn that the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Fish and Wildlife Service, the Environmental Protection Agency, all have armed SWAT teams. Why does the Department of Agriculture need a small army? Why does the Fish and Wildlife Service need a SWAT team to enforce supposedly mere fishing and hunting regulations? Why do we need to arm government bureaucrats to protect the environment? That is the opening page of Government Bullies by Senator Rand Paul. You will be shocked at what is going on in our own country. You will be shocked by the stories of average citizens, people who have been arrested and went to prison for moving dirt on their own land. And it didn't start with Barack Obama. Rand Paul is with us now. Senator, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Glenn. Thanks for having me.
This is I think this is a brave book because this is going well beyond the conversation in polite circles. This is going into the kind of conversation that I have with people that usually people don't want to hear and people don't believe.
Well, I think when you hear these personal stories, of a nurse in Mississippi who got 7 years in prison, she'd never had a speeding ticket, and she was selling lots for her father who was developing lots to sell for houses, and their crime is putting clean dirt on dry land, and she went to prison for 7 years. She had a 2-year-old daughter. Her dad's still in prison for 10 years. She was afraid to come to our hearing in Washington because she was afraid that they'll keep her dad in for the full 10 years.
Explain the dirt thing.
We started out with the Clean Water Act, and it was well-intentioned, and I actually agree with the principle. You shouldn't be allowed to dump chemicals or pollutants into the navigable waters of the United States. But what they did is these bureaucrats over time came to interpret dirt as a pollutant, and your backyard became a navigable water. And so we took something well-intentioned and went crazy with it.
Wait, how did that possibly happen?
Well, they said your backyard could be a navigable water because birds could fly from the Everglades and land in your backyard when there's a puddle back there, and so therefore your backyard is a wetlands. We spend a couple $100 million now policing people's backyards and finding them and jailing them.
Tell me about Jim Starr.
Jim Starr was like a lot of people, wanted to buy some land, get ahead, start a business. He wanted to grow mushrooms. He bought a boggy piece of land, but it was zoned for agriculture. In fact, he had to pay taxes for it being agricultural land. He got local permits, but then when he started to build, the EPA and the Corps came in and said, no, this is a wetlands. And they basically took the value of his land. He spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to please them. And in the end, he finally gave up. And this is how government is really bullying and terrifying businesses across our country.
When you have Gibson Guitars, which you talk about in your book, Gibson Guitars hadn't even been charged with anything. The thugs came in, kicked their doors down, confiscated their stuff, and still hasn't charged them with anything.
And they use this bullying tactic. They do threaten them with something, though. They threaten them with jail time. And the thing is what really gets me about the Gibson Guitar case is they're not accused of breaking an American law passed by Congress. They're accused of breaking an Indian law passed by the Indian Parliament. We've incorporated all foreign fishing regulations into our law. For each infraction, you can go to jail for a year. So we put another guy in, a U.S. citizen, in jail for 8 years for one of his crimes that he was accused of was a Honduran fishing regulation that said the lobster needs to be in cardboard boxes, not plastic.
Rand, what the hell's happening to us?
Well, it's part of a larger problem where we let unelected bureaucrats write the laws. And this is what your representatives have done. They basically have abdicated their responsibility, and so all of the laws now are vague outlines of what the laws become, and we let the bureaucrats finish off the law. So like Obamacare had 1,800 references to the secretary shall at a later date make this decision. Dodd-Frank had 400 rules that became 8,000 pages of regulations at a later date by someone who you can't unelect. This happens in all this regulatory policy, and you're right, it wasn't just President Obama. The wetlands, all the craziness with the wetlands got started under the first George Bush, who said, read my lips, no new wetlands, no wetlands will be, there'll be no loss of wetlands under my administration, which he kept better than his tax promise. But in the end, he doubled the amount of land that was under review for wetlands, and now we have the EPA and the Corps in people's backyards basically looking at leaves to see if the leaves are blackened to determine whether it's a wetlands.
Okay, I know this isn't in the book because it just happened over the weekend, but the family that has the golden eagles, the double golden eagle, the gold coins from 1933, family member put them in a safety deposit box back in 1933. They were confiscated. These coins were in the safety deposit box. The family completely forgot about them. They bring them out. The family finds them. They're worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. And the government has just decided, no, you don't get those coins. Those are ours.
Well, the problem really here is that the government is saying they can take things from you without any due process. That's part of one of the reforms I propose in here is that if they want to take your land or take your gold or anything like this, you should get a trial before a judge. And that's what happened to this couple from Idaho. They had a lot. They put gravel on it. The government said it's a wetlands, and they said, well, how do we protest this in court? And the government says you're not allowed to, but you're going to be fined $75,000 a day. But this brave family fought it all the way to the Supreme Court, and you know how the Supreme Court's only got maybe 4 or 5 conservatives. The decision was 9-0 in their favor to say that, for goodness sakes, if we're going to take someone's property, at least ought to be able to go to court and fight the government in court.
We have Mitt Romney coming out this weekend. Do we have the audio of him saying this? Coming out this weekend and talking about Obamacare and, to me, not making any sense at all. Do you have the audio or not, Pat? Yeah, here, listen to what he said.
That is part of the federal plan.
Oh, I'm not getting rid of all of health care reform. Of course, there are a number of things that I like in health care reform that I'm going to put in place. One is to make sure that those with pre-existing conditions can get coverage. 2 is to assure that the marketplace allows for individuals to have policies that cover their family up to whatever age they might like. I also want individuals to be able to buy insurance, health insurance, on their own, as opposed to only being able to get it on a tax advantage basis through their company.
Okay. The last one is not so bad, but pre-existing conditions, that's insane. Then insurance doesn't work anymore.
The problem is that anytime you mandate what insurance should and shouldn't coverage, whether it should cover sex changes, stomach stapling, nose jobs, or pre-existing conditions, when you mandate that, you're going to increase the price of it because it doesn't come for free. So any mandates will make insurance more expensive. And really the biggest problem as a physician I heard from people is that insurance costs too much. So anytime you mandate something, it's going to cost more. The other problem is that if I can get it with a pre-existing condition, you're not allowed to charge me anymore. Why should I buy it at all? Why not just wait till I've got chest pain, I'm rolling into the ER, and then I'll buy it in the emergency room, and then I'll save a lot of money. That's why President Obama put a mandate in there, which I completely disagree with. But if you're going to have that you cannot charge people more for pre-existing conditions, it only works if you mandate it and if you put a penalty in there for not buying insurance, because no one's going to want to buy insurance if you get rid of the pre-existing condition thing.
Okay, so let me take you on this question, and hopefully you can answer it. Kind of, it fits in with government bullies. The president is now floating this new executive order by and saying they're going to control or protect the internet, of course, just to protect us, which would lead to all kinds of nightmare things. Earlier today, I said, Barack Obama, make no mistake, we got the best Barack Obama you're going to get right now. It's going to get spookier. In fact, I compared him to the crow that is almost in every single Stephen King movie that sits on the wire, just goes, ah, and then swoops down and pecks your eyes out. That's the guy we're going to have. However, with that being said, Mitt Romney's not my ideal candidate. What do you say to people who say, well, I got to vote for somebody else or just not vote because he's going to do a lot of the same stuff?
Well, I think that when Governor Romney is elected, I think he will be a lot better than what we have. I think we can't probably stand 4 more years. The country's going to hell in a handbasket, and I really think that many industries will be bankrupted within the next 4 years. I don't know that we can survive another 4 years of this president, so I want Governor Romney to win. When he wins, though, it doesn't mean that I give up any of my beliefs about how health care reform would occur. I'll be introducing my own health care reform, a replacement for Obamacare, when I get back in September to Washington. So I'll continue that fight. I've also said, and I put Republicans on notice on this, I will not vote for a Republican budget that does not balance within a finite time. I'm not voting for a budget that balances in 28 years because I think that is just a fiction.
I know everybody says it can't be done, but I don't trust a budget that's out of 4 years.
Yeah, it has to be done in a finite period of time. The balanced budget amendment that we passed, or that all the Republicans supported, said you had to balance within 5 years. You have to believe in eliminating some government agencies. You have to believe in sending some responsibilities back to the state, or you can't balance it. But I can tell you that if you just simply froze spending, you balance in about 9 or 10 years. If you do the penny plan that Connie Mack and I have introduced, it balances by cutting 1% of real spending a year. You balance in about 5 or 6 years. So it can be done, but I'm just putting Republicans on notice that I want Republicans to win. I am a Republican, but just because it's a Republican budget, I'm not voting for anything that is not going to balance the budget.
Does your income or your insurance replacement, your health care replacement, does that come with allowing businesses to buy health care across state lines?
Yes, and the unique thing, a lot of my reforms expand HSAs and get the consumer involved so the consumer will bid prices down.
Thank you.
But the one thing I'm going to do that nobody else really has talked about is I'm going to introduce the concept of multi-year insurance. So when you get term life insurance and you get a pre-existing condition, your term life insurance doesn't go up. So let's say you have a heart attack today, but you've got a 20-year policy. The reason it doesn't matter whether you have a pre-existing condition is because you have a long-term policy. I want to do the same for health care. So a 25-year-old leaves home and gets a 30-year health insurance policy with a constant premium but with a rising deductible. And I've had some insurance companies model this for me. We think we could do a $3,000 premium every year from age 25 to 65, but you start out with a $2,000 deductible that gradually rises, and you pay for all of your routine expenses out of that account, which through competition will bid prices down, but you'll always have catastrophic health insurance.
Well, Ren, I can't wait to see it. God bless. Thank you so much for standing tall on this and standing up for what is right, and then also being sane enough to know that we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, it's taken us 100 years to screw this country up. It's not going to take us one election to fix it.
Absolutely. And we're going to keep plugging away, and I hope the book Government Bullies will be read by a lot of folks because people need to wake up and be alarmed at what their government's doing to them.
I will tell you, thank you very much, Ren. I will tell you that if you read this book, that is exactly the way you'll feel, alarmed. And you should be. You want to wake up your friends and neighbors? This book is full of stuff that people will say, no way that happened. No way. Oh, no, yes, it is. Here, right here. We're doing our comedy special for the movie theaters here in a couple of weeks. And when I go out on the road, there's a couple of places where I talk about a couple of things that are really in this book. And every time I'm in front of an audience, my audience, they gasp. Oh, my gosh. And you can see people in the audience going, did you know that? Read this book, Government Bullies by Senator Rand Paul.